So in previous class, regarding the feeding of poultry, we have discussed about what is the peculiarity of digestive system of poultry. Then what are the major nutrients required by the poultry, and discussed about poultry feed ingredients, it's energy feed stuff, protein feed stuff, vitamins, minerals, fats, all about this. And what are the factors which affect the voluntary feed intake by the birds. Then what is the requirement of nutrition requirement of poultry birds, ration formulation, anti-nutritive factor. And today we will discuss the common methods of feeding poultry and what are the different types of method for feeding poultry. And among the first are grain and mass feeding. Grain means just grain, you are whole grain or just broken grain or mixture of grain. Different type of just crushed maize, crushed wheat, sometimes crushed cake, groundnut cake or soybean cake, just as mix and feed the poultry. Each layer get a mixture of cereal grains and minerals, protein and vitamin supplements in the form of mass. Mass means that is in the form of powder. If it is in dry condition, then it is called dry mass. When it is in wet form, wet form and mixed with the water and having more moisture, then it is called wet mass. So there are two types of mass, and powdered form, wet mass and dry mass. Second method of feeding is all mass feeding. All the ingredients are grounded, mixed in the required proportion according to requirement of the birds in terms of protein food protein requirement or energy requirement. And in all mass feeding, because all the ingredients are grounded and mixed, so the birds don't have choice for selective feeding. And some birds just want to select the piece of, just for example, in case of when we are eating chicken curry, most of the people want to take leg piece. That is selective feeding. So in mass feeding, mass feeding, there is no chance of selective feeding. And when there is no selective feeding among the birds, then there will be the informed egg production. Next is pellet feeding. That's just like tablet, and the dry mass is pelleted under high pressure. And the advantage of pellet feeding is saving of feed, because when we feed the birds with mass and with dry mass, then there are more wastage of feed. But in case of pellet feeding, because the size of pellet is just like a tablet, more than around 1 inch, 1.5 inch, so there is less wastage of feed. That is, there is saving of feed, 15 to 20% of feed saving. It is also convenient in feeding, required less number of labor, and also the handling cost is less in comparison to mass, and finally reduce the feed wastage. And fourth method of feeding is crumble feeding. Crumble means just like a corn flake, and it is produced by a rolling of pellet. And pellet is in the round form, that is in tablet form, round stick type form, in the size of 1 inch and 1.5 inch. When it is rolled over just like a bread, chapati, just you see chapati, that is called crumble. The cost of making crumble is slightly more, but it reduces feed wastage, and sorting, that is selective feeding, and adapted to automatic equipment and automatic feeding, and it also requires less number of feeder or a storage space in the godown, and finally improve the palatability and digestibility of feed. Fifth is controlled feeding, restricted feeding or phase feeding, because generally we do restricted feeding in growing period. But in case of layer, we are also doing some restricted feeding to control the body weight. That is, it is also called phase feeding because we are controlling the feed intake in 3 different phases. And phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. First phase, it is started from only 22nd week to 42 weeks. The period is 22 to 42 weeks. During this period, the birds are expected to reach from 0 to peak egg production of 85%. And around 5 to 6 weeks after laying of first week, birds reach to their peak production of eggs. So it is most critical period because after 5 to 6 weeks, maybe after 40 weeks, there is no peak production, peak egg production. So that is why it is called peak. That is called a critical period. Okay, this restricted control free egg placed into increase in the body weight by 500 gram, egg size by 40 gram to 60 gram. And during this period, we demand larger size of egg for higher cost, selling cost in the market, or the good size of chicks when it is used for the hatching. So the birds having approximately higher weight than the optimum, then it will produce a large size of egg. If the body weight lower than the optimum, then they will produce a smaller size of egg. So that is why during this period, we have our target is to increase the body weight by 500 gram and egg size by increase by around 20 gram and 40 gram to 60 gram. The calorie protein ratio, that is energy protein ratio of the ration, should be so adjusted depending on the protein required and the feed consumed. I have told you when we have discussed about the requirement of the birds, then there have already discussed what the energy protein ratio for boiler, for layer, which is in finisher phase of at the end of laying phase is very high. So the energy protein ratio of the ration is adjusted so that they can fulfill the protein requirement and the feed also consumed. In winter, energy protein ratio should range 160 to 170. In case of layer, during winter season, the calorie or energy protein ratio range between 160 to 170, and during summer it is reduced to 150 to 155. That is the ratio of energy protein ratio. Then phase 2, this phase ranges from 42 to 60 weeks of age, and 42 weeks to 62 weeks. And during this phase, the calorie protein ratio during the winter is about 193 to 195 and 10% lower during summer month. Then comes phase 3, that is from 62 weeks to 72 weeks of age, or till the birds are culled. Till the birds are culled, depending upon their molting pattern. If the layers are early molted, then they are poor layers. Then we have to cull the bird earlier, 72 weeks earlier, before 72 weeks. Or if birds are late molted, that means they are good producer, then we should help the birds till molting. So that is why it is called the 62 to 72 weeks of age till the birds are discarded and culled. The protein requirement during this period is 15 gram per hen per day, and that could be made if the energy protein ratio is kept between 196 to 200 during the winter and 175 to 180 during the summer months. Other methods of feed restriction and control feeding, that is giving limited feeding time. And we are giving just consider that we are giving the birds 8 hours feeding time, and during 8 hours feeder is half full or 1/3 full, yani feed is present in the feeder. If we are giving only 4 hours, then bird to have consumed the feed required by their body during that period. But they get less time, then they will consume less feed. That is the one of method to control the body weight. That control feeding is limited feeding time. Quantitative restriction, we have already discussed that quantitative amount of feed, quantity of feed should be reduced. Third is quantitative restriction. Qualitative restriction means ingredient of feed should be changed. Not amount, but ingredient. That is, we mix the cell grit, we mix the stone, chips the stone, so that the birds consume less feed. Nutrient dilution, you dilute the nutrients in the ration, escape a day feeding, and elevation of environmental temperature. And escape a day feeding, escape 2-day feeding, alternate day feeding, just like this. And the last method for restricted feeding to increase the environmental temperature by use of artificial, that use of bulb, heat, whatever means required for increasing the environmental temperature, means micro temperature, not macro. And inside the seed, if the temperature inside seed is higher than the outside temperature, then bird, there is heat on the body of bird, and they reduce feed intake during summer, because during summer especially environmental temperature is also higher, and when we increase the temperature inside the shed, then there should be more benefits for restricted feeding. The precaution to be taken during controlled feeding. What precautions should be taken in case of layer doing controlled feeding? The feeder should be stayed frequently, so that there should be no selective feeding, and scrapped periodically to avoid cake formation. And periodically after 2 days, 3 days, cleaned by scrapping, so there should be no feed. Wet feed stick to the feeder, which is a good source of fungal growth. Feeder should be filled 1/3 to 1/2 level to control feed wastage, and under overfeeding should be avoided. If there should be overfeeding, then there should be less egg production. If there is underfeeding, then there should be also less egg production, and weight or size of egg also reduced. One second. प्रणाम सर। प्रणाम। नमस्ते सर, क्या हाल चाल है सर? नहीं, वो सब तो सब बहुत हीट में आ गई थी, बहुत प्रेग्नेंट भी हुई है, बहुत सारे प्रेग्नेंट हो गई थी, 2, 3, 4 नहीं हुआ था, बाकी सब प्रेग्नेंट हुई थी, प्रेग्नेंट हुई थी। जी जी, हाँ सब ठीक है, लेकिन वो लोग सारे को क्या कहते हैं, एम्ब्रियो ट्रांसफर टेक्नोलॉजी में यूज कर रहे हैं ना, एम्ब्रियो ट्रांसफर टेक्नोलॉजी में यूज कर रहे हैं ईटीटी में। नहीं, शुरुआत में तो मतलब कि सबको मतलब कि वह ईटीटी के थ्रू प्रेग्नेंट किया गया बहुत को ना, लेकिन ये तो शुरू में ही आ गए थे। हाँ, उसके लिए हाँ 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 जी सर, जी सर, थैंक यू। Okay, now we come to the feeding management, general feeding management of poultry. Why we manage the feeding to save the feeding cost and reduce the feed cost, and reduce the total cost of poultry production. So what are the different methods, what are different management through which we can reduce the feed cost and overall reduce the cost of poultry production? First is feed restriction. It helps in delay maturity by controlling the weight and increasing the egg production and productive life of layer birds. Second is nutritional adjustment during extreme weather and during high temperature, during very low temperature. And generally the comfortable temperature zone is lying between 13 to 18 degrees C per layer. But when the temperature is environmental temperature above 30 degrees C, then birds don't eat to meet the energy requirement. And below 13 degree centigrade temperature, they consume so much energy to maintain their body temperature. So both extremes result in increased cost of poultry feed, meat and egg production, because when the temperature is very high, then bird eat less feed, means they produce less number of eggs. If temperature is very low, that is below the 30 degrees temperature, then bird eat more feed to maintain their body temperature, and feed is wasted in the form of producing heat in the body. So there should be also less egg production. So both extreme, high temperature and low temperature, reduce the growth rate of birds and egg production of the laying chicken. Reducing stress and disease. If birds are suffering from stress and disease, then birds producing less, consuming not more feed, consuming the same feed or less feed, their performance will be reduced, which is resulted into poor feed efficiency. Yani feed intake divided by body weight gain or weight of 1 dozen egg, the weight of egg produced during particular period. That is feed efficiency. It is subclinical disease is economically more dangerous because sick birds consume feed without efficient production. And acute, the birds are suffering from acute disease, then they are reduce their feed intake, reduce their egg production, both are reduced. Then it is something different, it is acute suddenly. But in subacute case or subclinical disease, it is more dangerous because during that period, birds are not so much sick, but consuming approximately normal feed, but producing very less number of eggs. That is why subclinical disease is more dangerous in terms of economics or in terms of financial. Now come to feeding of broiler. Generally, broilers are fed ad lib, as the growth is very fast in the case of broiler. Broiler ration is high in energy and protein in comparison to layer. Broiler ration is fed for 3 weeks and finish the ration till market age. Factors affecting the feed conversion ratio. And we want feed conversion to very low. For that time, the feed conversion ratio is around 1.6 to 1.7 and 1.5 to 1.7. And if birds eating 1.5 kg or 1.6 kg feed to produce 1 kg body weight gain. So how can it affect the feed conversion ratio? And what are different types of factors? First is types of feed fed. Which types of feed are feeding? We are feeding more fibrous feed, only high energy feed or very high protein feed. Strain of birds. Birds are which type of strain? Type for egg production, type for milk production, fast growing bird strain of birds, or just like this. Environmental temperature, high and low temperature. In case of very high temperature, birds eating less, produce and also production is less. In case of low temperature, birds are eating more feed, producing less number of eggs or lower body weight gain. Age and weight of birds. What is the age and weight of birds? According to This is also depend disease and condemnation. Disease also affect the FCR, as during the disease condition in sick condition birds are not eating, so there is less growth rate or less egg production. And condemnation, any deformity, or maybe due any reason due to which bird are suffered from culling. Culling means removal from the flock, maybe due to the injury, maybe due to just very underweight, maybe due to the very overweight, just like this. Is a rodents and flying birds control in feeding area. It is in feeding area, the rodents and flying birds should be controlled, because it also eat the feed of the birds. So those feed which are ration or feed used for the feeding of the birds, they are wasted, as the rodents and other flying birds should also eat this. It's antibiotic and medication to improve FCR. FCR should be improved through use of antibiotics or growth promoter or supplements. Debeaking and size of baby chicks. In debeaking, when we are use the method of debeaking, if you done it early age, then it's okay. If you done very late age or not doing debeaking, then beak become more rubbery. They are difficulty in feeding. And size of baby chicks. Now, what is the size of baby chicks should be? It should be around 55 to 50 gram, 45 to 50 gram. If body weight is very less of baby chicks and day-old chicks, then it also affects their body weight gain and ultimately their egg production. Feed wastage, if there is feed wastage, then FCR should be very high. And form of feed, and feed are fed to the birds in which form? In mass form, in pelleted form, in crumble form, which form? It also affects the efficiency of feed conversion. You see how much in feed intake, especially in the boiler, 0 to 10 days, and chicken starter number 250 gram per day per bird. Intake during this 10 days, 250 gram, not per day, 250 gram for 10 days, 11 to 30 days, around 20 days. While grower number, that is around 2 kg, and 30 days to the slaughter, while freezer feed, that is around 2 kg feed. There is a video feeding management of boiler. You can see this.
This video is supported by Poultry Shorts mobile app. Yes, largest poultry app. You can download the app from the link in the description. हेलो फ्रेंड्स, मैं हूं कौशिक कुकरेजा। यूट्यूब के चैनल कौशिक कुकरेजा पोल्ट्री टाइम्स में आपका स्वागत है। आज के वीडियो का टॉपिक है फीडिंग मैनेजमेंट। फीड, जो कि ब्रॉयलर पोल्ट्री फार्मिंग का बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण पार्ट है, और हम तो कुछ महीने से फीड के रेट भी आसमान छू रहे हैं। सोया और फीड सप्लीमेंट सब महंगा हो रहा है, तो फीड कंपनीज को मजबूरन फीड के रेट बढ़ाने पड़ रहे हैं। इसमें फार्मर को फायदा।
I will send you the link. You should see how the feeding management should be done in case of boiler chicken. Next, feeding of layers. For layers, energy requirement is for maintenance 220 kilocalorie, for 70% egg production 130 kilocalorie, for 1 gram gain per day 3 kilocalorie. Usually energy concentration in feed and energy concentration in feed and energy value of feed is 2.8 megacalorie ME per kg feed. If the ration has a low energy concentration than 2.3 megacalorie, then there should be reduced energy intake and reduced egg production. Protein requirement is a laying hen receiving diet containing 3.1 megacalorie ME per kg dry matter require 16.5% protein. So to get maximum economic return from laying hen flock, a feed efficiency of 1.6 to 1.8 kg of feed per dozen of egg should be needed. In a laying ration, what is should be the protein? 15% protein and energy value 2900 kilocalorie ME per kg of diet. They also require some essential amino acids: leucine, isoleucine, lysine, methionine, tryptophan, and arginine. And among these, methionine is the first limiting amino acid for egg production. Methionine is the first limiting amino acid for egg production. The layers are maintained or controlled feeding to avoid fat deposition in the body, which finally results in lower egg production. Fat addition in the ration. How much fat is and what is the benefit of adding fat in the ration? It increases the egg production during winter. A reduced amount of feed required per dozen eggs. It also layers should provide adequate feeder space and a rapid even distribution of feed, so the birds can't fight among themselves for feed. Supplementation of 2% and more calcium in the diet, because calcium is very much required for formation of egg cell. It's higher concentration of vitamins, just like vitamin A, D, E, riboflavin, pantothenic acid, niacin, vitamin B12, and minerals, that is manganese and zinc, should be required for hatching egg. So it should be also provided in the diet of layer. Now come to nutritional deficiency diseases. It's a deficiency is caused due to dietary insufficiency or inactivation of nutrient component. And why deficiency occurs? Deficiency occurs due to inadequate supply of that nutrient in the ration, or maybe there are some interaction, because in case of, just for example, in case of calcium and phosphorus, if the ratio is 2:1 to general 2:1, if the phosphorus is more than calcium, then there should be less absorption of calcium. Or if the calcium concentration is very high in comparison to phosphorus, then there will be also it interfere with the absorption of phosphorus. So that is the interaction among the different nutrients. If the continuous non-supply of nutrient cause deficiency, and symptoms are non-infectious, means the disease produced by the germs, maybe it is virus, bacteria, or fungal, or protozoa. So it is non-infectious. The deficient disease can be reversible. If there is deficiency, and after seeing the symptoms, if you provide that nutrients in the feed, then it should be recovered. Body suffer from uneven growth, improper growth of feeder, low hatchability, drop in and reduced egg production, lower FCR, lower immunity in the body, and increase the susceptibility to various diseases. Any nutrient in excess will cause toxicity. That is, if the calcium is very high, then it is toxic, it is causing nephritis. Excess fat, increase abdominal fat. If you provide excess fat in the ration, then there should be excess fat in abdominal region, and that is called fatty liver or fatty liver kidney syndrome. Or if we provide excess protein content in the ration, then it will cause gout. If excess salt in the diet results in salt poisoning, and excess vitamin E interferes with nutrient absorption. Feed areas carry toxins as mycotoxins, insecticides, antibiotics, causing liver and kidney damage. So what are the symptoms of different vitamins and minerals? Vitamin A, it retarded the growth, weakness, nutritional drop, pustules in mouth, reduced egg production, and impaired vision. Vitamin D deficiency, that is soft bone, leg deformity, lameness, swollen joint, rickets, poor egg production, soft celled egg. Vitamin E, crazy tick disease, that is encephalomalacia, or exudative diathesis in case of ruminants. Due to vitamin K deficiency, hemorrhage in the substitutions, thigh and breast muscles. Vitamin B1 deficiency, loss of appetite, and polyneuritis. vitamin B2 deficiency, culture, paralysis, reduced growth, emaciation, and weakness. Choline, retarded growth, slip tendon, swelling of hog joint. Calcium, rickets, thin-celled egg, drop in egg production, cage layer fatigue. Phosphorus deficiency, rickets, osteomalacia, loss of appetite, and weakness. Manganese deficiency, the symptom is paralysis, slip tendon, and dwarfing of long bones. So these are the major vitamins and minerals deficiency, and these are the symptoms of related deficiency. Iron deficiency, hypertrophic macrocytemia. Now we finally come to poultry feed formulation. How we can formulate the So okay. Anybody have any
Yes, sir.
problem? Any question?
No, sir.
So topic of feeding poultry is finished. If anybody has any question, you can ask. Okay.
Yes, sir.